What's up, everyone, and welcome to episode 229 of Two Amazon Sellers and a Microphone, brought to you by Solozo. And today, this might be the least sexy topic in all of e-commerce, but it's
important.
super important. It's not my bread and butter, that's for sure. I know it's not Chris's. We try to look to outsource this any way we can possible. But we're talking about e-commerce bookkeeping. So it's critical. It's critical for managing your business. A lot of people really don't pay enough attention to it as they should. But joining us to talk all about this is the guy who absolutely loves e-commerce bookkeeping, Nathan Hirsch. He's the CEO of EcomBalance. What's up, Nathan? How are you?
Dustin, Chris, great to be here. I know I've known Chris for a while, kind of behind the scenes. I've kind of seen him on social media. Dustin, great to see you.
Absolutely. We're great to meet you, number one. Yeah. And thanks for joining us. This is something we don't talk about all the time on this podcast. So there's going to be some great insights and information for everyone who's listening for sure. It is a critical part. A lot of times people who are starting up a new business, they're trying to get it rolling maybe before they really dive in and focus on making sure their books are up to date. Then they've kind of got a mess on their hands and they need some help, some support. So we're really excited to talk about that and everything that you do to help your clients at EcomBalance. But I want to start, we'd love to get your background. We'd love to hear your story. We know you've had other ventures in the past. We could talk about that, but what got you into the e-commerce space? What ended up getting you the idea to create EcomBalance and what you're doing for clients? So you got the floor for a while. Let's hear your story.
Yeah, sure. So it all started when I was in college. I had a bunch of jobs growing up. From the time I was 15 on, my parents always made me work full time during the summer, during vacations, even during the school year. And I needed some extra side money in college. And I started competing with my school bookstore, buying people's textbooks at the end of the semester and reselling them at the beginning of next semester. And I had a pretty nice operation going. I started hiring my friends. The trunk of my car, my dorm room was just full of college textbooks. And Amazon was one of a few different places that I was reselling these books. And back then, people didn't really know what Amazon was. It was kind of just a big bookstore. And I remember I got a cease and desist letter from my college telling me to knock it off and to stop competing with their bookstore. And I didn't want to get kicked out of college. So I quickly stopped selling textbooks. My parents were teachers, so that would not have gone over too well. And I had this Amazon account and I just started playing around, seeing what other products besides books I could sell. And I kind of created drop shipping years before I even knew it was called drop shipping. I thought, hey, I don't have any place to store anything. I don't have much money in the bank account to buy inventory. What if I built relationships with these retailers and these manufacturers, and they kept my credit card on file, and I would tell them where to send something. They charge my card, and I'd make the difference between what I charged and what they charged me. And before I knew it, I was selling hundreds of thousands of dollars, eventually millions of dollars out of my college dorm room. And I started again hiring college kids to help me. And that ended up being a pretty big disaster. College kids were not very reliable when it came to growing my Amazon business. Outside of one, which his name's Connor Gillivan, and he became my business partner. And we've been working together for 10, 15 years. So I met him in college. Since we had to hire people and the business was growing, a buddy of mine told me about virtual assistants and hiring from the Philippines. And I kind of dove into that, and through a lot of trial and error became really good at it. So we sold about $25 million on Amazon from 2008 to 2015. Meanwhile, Amazon's getting more competitive. Courses and coaches and consultants are coming out, different Amazon software. Amazon's cracking down on drop shipping. And we kind of saw the writing on the wall that, hey, this is a nice cash flow business, but it's probably not going to be around in 20 years. And so we started to pivot, and we had this idea to kind of lease out these VAs and e-commerce freelancers to other Amazon sellers. And when I talked to other sellers, they always struggled with hiring. So we started offering them to other sellers, and that eventually became FreeUp. And FreeUp was our first real opportunity in building our own brand, our own website, SEO, having clients and figuring out a billing system, all of that. And we really built that up over 4 years, working with a lot of the top people in the e-commerce space. I mean, that was one of the big differences going from an Amazon business where I didn't talk to anyone and it was completely in secret to I want to get out there and meet everyone in the space. And we scaled free up. Bookkeeping was a big part of it. Kind of the difference between my Amazon business and free up was the Amazon business, I would dump everything on my accountant at the end of the year and file taxes. And with free up, we had a bookkeeper in place from day one. We'd get a report at the end of the month. We'd make decisions based on what the numbers were telling us. And then at the end of the year, it wasn't that big of a deal to pass that over to our CPA. So we scaled free up for 4 years. That company was acquired at the end of 2019 by one of our clients, which is a whole nother story we can get into if you guys want. And from there, we thought we were going to take a year off and travel, but the pandemic hit, so we were kind of stuck at home anyway. We built a course called Outsource School that we still sell. It's kind of our unique hiring process, and did a lot of brainstorming of how else we can stay in the e-commerce space. We love the e-commerce space. We want to do something different besides VAs and bookkeeping, or besides VAs and freelancers. And we kind of like unsexy businesses, staying away from what everyone else is doing, but also stuff that's very important. Like every business has to hire. Every business needs really good financials. And we think that we can bring, we thought that we can bring a unique perspective, since we're entrepreneurs first, e-commerce sellers first, not bookkeepers first. We speak the same language. We know what information they need to see and how to make decisions. And so we set out to do a beta round of clients and build a team here in Colorado and really hit the ground running. And we've been doing it now for about 6 months and have a good core group of clients and a team that I would put against any other bookkeeping team out there. So that's the short, long version of how I went from selling books to drop shipping baby products to free up to Outsource School to EcomBalance.
Love the stories, right? Like I love hearing the backstory just to kind of see how you got into this. But you definitely picked a unsexy topic of bookkeeping. Now that was one of the things when Dustin and I first started. It's like, yeah, sourcing was great, doing the listings was fun, like selling products was fun, and then you're like, oh god, I got to worry about the taxes and the bookkeeping. Like this sucks. I don't think like that. I don't have like an analytical mind. Just I want to be able to do the marketing side of it. So this is where I was actually a client of Free Up. I've seen Nathan around and he's done a lot of promotion and really good tool. But to this day, I still have my bookkeeper is the guy I found with Nathan's help, saved my business. He does all my taxes. But this is a topic that I think you're digging your feet in, and I think it's going to be successful because not a lot of people like this bookkeeping. It can be difficult sometimes with all these sales tax and whatnot. What are you seeing change? What's going on between what you saw in the past and what's happening now with bookkeeping?
Yeah, so kind of my overall mentality is entrepreneurs should not be doing their own books. E-commerce sellers should not be doing their own books. I mean, first of all, it's just not a good use of your time. Any time that you spend doing your books is times you can spend on sales, marketing, and expansion. And I learned this the hard way. Back with my Amazon business, I was sitting there with a thick stack of credit card statements, going through and entering them into QuickBooks every single month. And I dreaded it. And it just took up a lot of time. And that was all time I could have spent growing my business. And second of all, entrepreneurs usually aren't good at bookkeeping. I mean, 9 times out of 10, if an entrepreneur is doing their own bookkeeping, down the line, they're just going to have to pay to get it redone by someone who knows what they're doing. So and even if you are like a CPA or a bookkeeper out there who's now an entrepreneur, I would still argue it's not a good use of your time. And I can't tell you, like, one of the best decisions I ever made was hiring a bookkeeper in that first month of Free Up. And even before we were profitable, we had a bookkeeper in place where we'd get a report at the end of every month and make decisions off of it. And I think that's what entrepreneurs need to understand. You don't need to even log into your QuickBooks account. You don't need to input anything. You don't need to reconcile everything. What you do need to do is have a system in place where the month ends and 10 to 15 days after that month is over, you have a meeting in place with your business partner, your team leader, your bookkeepers, whoever it is, and you go through that together and you make decisions based on what the numbers are telling you. And you also compare it. You compare it to the same or to the previous month. You compare it to the same month last year, and you're able to see what's actually going on in your business, not to mention not having to scramble at the end of every year to pass everything over to your account.
I remember it was, I don't remember what time of year I started my business back in 2014. But like Chris said, I mean, I was gung ho. I was launching products. They were selling. It was amazing. I was trying to follow every single step. that I needed to do, review generation, all the follow-up emails back in the day that I was sending out, everything. And I remember it was getting close to tax time, and I was like, uh-oh, I think I forgot a major step in the process. And then I was researching accountants and tax people, and I was like, I'm almost too embarrassed to even go to them and lay this pile of papers down, because it was just, I wasn't focused. I learned my lesson real quick. I better figure something out with this. I mean, and also, like you mentioned, you just don't get the in-depth insights into your business. I mean, you could very easily be thinking something's profitable and it's not, or vice versa. It could, and then, so it's critical, I mean, to have that. But I'll never forget that embarrassment. I was like, oh my gosh.
I mean, 2 points that you kind of brought up. I mean, I have friends that are accountants, and that February, March, April, that's their busy season. The last thing they want is for someone to come in who has not done any books for an entire year and say, hey, do this, file my tax returns. I mean, you're going to pay a premium. They're not going to get it done quickly. They're going to file an extension. And it's stressful. It's a big waste of time. And a lot of times, and there are CPA firms that do a good job with monthly bookkeeping, but a lot of times to get a CPA firm who can do the tax and also do your monthly books on time every single month, not only doing it for taxes, but also displaying it in a way for you to really make decisions off of, that can be tough. And I've always separated it where I've had a bookkeeper, I've had an accountant, they're working together, they're collaborating, but they're each specializing in what they're doing. And in my opinion, it's also cheaper too. And the other thing I forgot to mention is just like going through the sale of FreeUp. That was the most stressful 6 months of my life. It took a very long time. There were lots of parties involved, and that's with immaculate books. Our books were great going back 4 years. That really helped us build trust with the buyer, helped us pass due diligence. But I can't, and I'm friends with a lot of brokers and aggregators in the space. The last thing they want is messy books that have to get fixed up. That just delays the whole process. It breaks trust. It can blow up a deal. You don't want to start thinking about bookkeeping when you're going to sell. You want to have it all set up now. So if you ever want to sell your business in the future, it's a real option.
You bring up a really good point there. And that it ties in with the story I was talking about. I mean, when Chris and I started, when you were selling books out of your dorm room, and then you started doing some wholesale model type operations, at that point in your life, and even in the industry as a whole, you weren't thinking, oh, this is a sellable asset, this is a business I could sell at some point. You're thinking, oh, I'm making X amount per month, extra cash, this is great. And so the rise of the aggregators, the rise of the growth you could have with an e-commerce business, all of that changed people's focus. Now people are they're starting a business with the intention of exiting, in a certain time frame, and bookkeeping is critical. The aggregators, the better you can present your business to them truthfully, exactly what's going on, the easier that whole process is going to be, and you're probably going to get a better deal out of it.
It improves the multiple too. I mean, Joe Valley from Quiet Light, we were chatting about this, and just doing your books in accrual opposed to cash basis, or knowing what things like conferences that you can deduct and not have it count as expense to improve your multiple, like stuff like that matters. And it can really be the difference between getting a better deal or not, just how your books are set up and who actually did your books.
What's it look like when somebody comes to you? So, let's say you got a seller out there, and they're going to have to bring records to you and get you access. What's the process if somebody's never had a bookkeeper before? They've been kind of willy-nilly in it. What does it look like when they work with somebody like you guys on EcomBalance?
Yeah, and I'll preface it by saying I'm a process junkie, so I fully expect our processes to get way better in 6 months than they are right now. Right now, it's creating an account on our platform, submitting a type form so that we know we have information about your business, and sending us access to your current book. So if you have a QuickBooks or Xero account, or if you're keeping track in Excel, whatever you have, you can send over to us. And from there, we'll give you a price. And that price is it could be any of three things. It could be any kind of catch up or cleanup work. If you haven't done your books in a year or whatever it is, or if your books are caught up, there wouldn't be anything. It's a monthly price that we charge you on that first of the month before we get you the books on the 10th to 15th. And then it's any kind of add-on services, which are completely optional. If you want us to do sales tax or payroll or paying vendors or cash flow projections, whatever that is. And assuming you agree to that, our next step is integration. We just hired a full-time integration person to make that process very easy. We want to get integrated as quick as possible so we can get started as fast as possible. But that's getting access to get your banks, your credit cards, your marketplaces, view-only access so that it's safe. We're also getting any documents like articles of incorporation and stuff that we need. And from there, we have a kickoff call and we hit the ground running. And my goal as an entrepreneur looking at this business is, how do we make this faster? How do we make this easier? How do we make it quicker for people to get a price? How do we shorten the integration time and make it so it's not a hassle for our clients? But right now, that's the current process.
And it's not only just Amazon marketplace you're working with, other marketplaces out there, eBay, Walmart, those are other areas you also help out with?
Yeah, we work with sellers that sell on all different platforms. Kind of like FreeUp, we target e-commerce, but we'll randomly get referrals for non-e-commerce businesses. E-commerce tends to be the most complicated bookkeeping. If you can do e-commerce bookkeeping, you can crush pretty much any other bookkeeping as well. So we get software companies and agencies and coaches and consultants. But I mean, all of our bookkeepers have a lot of what marketplaces you're selling on. We can definitely work with you.
What other than the fee that we're paying you for the bookkeeping, is there any other thing that we need? I mean, if we're using QuickBooks currently or whatever, do you integrate to that, or do you have a preferred accounting bookkeeping software that you're using?
Yeah, so we're compatible with both Xero and QuickBooks. If it's up to us, or if you don't have anything, we'll use QuickBooks. That's kind of our default. If you're using any other kind of software, we would have to migrate over to QuickBooks. In terms of what you pay for, so QuickBooks is the only thing that you pay for on your own. Again, this is my entrepreneur mentality. You should own your own QuickBooks accounts. I've seen nightmares where the accountant or the bookkeeper is the owner of the QuickBooks account and something happens to that bookkeeper and it's tough to get it back. So we want to keep our clients as owners of the QuickBooks account. It's pretty affordable. It could be $50 a month or whatever, depending on the plan. And then the only other tool is A2X, and we have an agreement with them. That's a software to connect Amazon or Shopify or whatever, to pull it into QuickBooks and make sure the data is in an easy way for our bookkeepers to use. But we just factor that into our monthly price. It's not a separate thing you have to pay for.
Gotcha. Seems seamless. Seems relatively easy to get started and set up, which is the point, right?
Definitely. I mean, we interviewed at something like 200 e-commerce sellers before we started this thing, and just tried to learn the competitors, the pain points, what people like, what people don't like, what kind of bookkeepers that they've used and their experiences. So we've really tried to tweak everything to be the most ideal experience. Like you guys started the show, no one likes bookkeeping. There's always some kind of time that needs to be spent to set it up to do it properly. But our goal is to make that as efficient as possible.
Go ahead, Chris. You were going to say something.
What kind of reporting does the seller get? What's that reporting look like? Is it broken down by SKUs? Is it saying like, hey, maybe you want to pull back a little bit of advertising spend? Is there actionable things that a seller can do when they get that reporting, or is it more just high level?
Yeah, so we provide income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow by the 10th to the 15th. We also do a great job with segmenting. So it could be different marketplaces. It could be different brands. I can't tell you how many sellers might be selling 5 different SKUs, but only one of them is profitable, and they're wasting a lot of time and money on the other 4. So we like to help you segment and trends. So we have this health status report that shows you what directions things are going, whether it's profit margin or revenue or ad spend. So you can actually compare and see, hey, are my expenses going up faster than revenue or whatever it is. And we even have some advanced custom reporting and CFO type services. That's an add-on for someone that really wants to dig into it. So our goal is to really display information in a way that you can make decisions off of and really know what's going on in your business without overwhelming the entrepreneur that really doesn't want to understand the ins and outs of bookkeeping.
You mentioned earlier cash versus accrual, and I, this is again stepping outside of my my comfort zone.
What's accrual mean?
Yeah, but can you explain the difference? Because I mean, cash is easier, right, in terms of bookkeeping, and accrual is trickier. But explain the difference and why it's important for e-commerce sellers to go with the accrual method?
Yeah, I mean, the most basic example, let's say that you buy $50,000 worth of inventory in January. Well, in January, you might show a huge loss because you made a pretty big purchase, but then you're selling those products in February, March, April. And if you're doing it cash basis, that inventory is only, or that cost is only showing up in January. And then February, March, April are going to show pretty big profits because you weren't buying inventory during that time. And at the end of the day, that doesn't really tell you anything that you need to know about your business. So there's different ways to go around it. Either people can provide us their cost of goods sold each month. A2X has some good features there, or we can do some cost of goods averaging where it's averaged out over a certain amount of time and gives you a much better idea of what's actually going on in your company. And yeah, cash basis is easy. I've run business in the past, like Free Up, where there's no overhead, there's no inventory. You're getting paid up front by clients. You're paying freelancers the next week. So there's really no need to do accrual. E-commerce, you'll get a much better multiple and you'll have a much better idea of what's going on with your business if you're doing accrual-based accounting.
Are there tax implications? Does it affect you on the tax side, cash versus accrual?
Yeah, it can, especially in like those year-end cutoffs, like depending on when you buy inventory and when that year ends. And some people might have a different year end depending on what your accountant sets up. I'll kind of defer to accountants on that. Like right now, we don't offer tax services. We'll work with whoever CPA that is. And I'm also happy to refer my CPA, who I've worked with for 10 years. So yeah, we kind of go with them on that, but there are different ways. And depending on your business, it might make sense to do cash or accrual. For most e-commerce businesses, it makes sense to do accrual.
And talk about, I mean, I'm sure there's good bookkeeping and bad bookkeeping for businesses. What are the what are the things that you guys are doing to provide maybe more insights, whatever, to the business owner, as opposed to somebody who's just trying to run their own books the best they can?
Yeah. So to me, there's a difference between like preparing books in a way to be able to file taxes and preparing books in a way that someone can actually read it and make decisions on. And that's why the chart of accounts becomes so important. And our controller, Shelia, does a great job organizing the chart of accounts so that the average person can actually understand. So what are the expense categories? What are the revenue categories on the income statement? How is the balance sheet set up? And you can do the books correctly and file the right tax at the end of the year while not putting them in a way that the average person can make decisions on every single month. You can bunch all expenses together or have expenses in the wrong place, but still get the correct profit to pay taxes on. So to me, that becomes a big factor. Another thing that like there's common mistakes that bookkeeping services that don't know e-commerce do. Like, for example, they'll take the deposit that goes into your bank account as the top line on the income statement, when really that's not your top line sales numbers. There's Amazon sales and then a bunch of Amazon's fees and refunds and reimbursements. And then there's that number that goes into your bank account. And using a tool like A2X makes that more possible to get very accurate numbers so you can actually see and understand your fees and what your revenue and what your sales really looks like.
Something that may be elementary and maybe beginner like, but what's the difference between an accounting and a bookkeeper? Like what they a lot of those get intertwined together. What's the difference between a bookkeeper and an accountant?
Yeah. So it's a great question. Some people will say like accounting, kind of everything falls into the area of accounting. I like to break it down into like tax and bookkeeping. So I have a CPA who I've worked with for 10 plus years, and he files my taxes. He gives me tax strategy advice. He'll connect me with financial planners or whatever for retirement accounts. And he's kind of in control on how to minimize my taxes while also making sure that I lower my chance of getting audited or have any issues with the IRS down the line. But he doesn't want to do my monthly books. For that, I'll have a bookkeeper or a bookkeeping service. And their goal is to create really a robotic system where the month ends. And then by the 10th or the 15th, you get those reports and providing the income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow. And if you have it set up correctly, your CPA and your bookkeeper are communicating. And your CPA might have certain advice that they pass over to the bookkeeper. The CPA will handle stuff like, are you an LLC? Are you an S Corp? Are you a C Corp? Creating that right structure, how you handle payroll. Are you taking distributions versus putting yourself on payroll? That's all stuff that the CPA would do. And our bookkeepers are very high level. They can give suggestions. They can definitely tell you if you're doing something wrong or something that doesn't go with what an S corporation is or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, you really should have a CPA that you can go to for those tax questions, and a bookkeeper that's doing that month-to-month books, reconciling all the accounts. And the bookkeepers are cheaper. That's the thing. If you're paying a CPA to do your books, chances are you're overpaying. There's very few CPA services that do both at a high level with the right pricing for each one.
Do you also another factor that's another thing that's really kind of annoying, or something you got to keep your finger on the pulse, is sales tax. You get all these states that email you, hey, you got to do this, you got to get the sales tax figured out. A couple of years ago, that was a big deal. I remember everybody's freaking out about making sure they're registered in states and sales tax. Is that a service where you also will submit the sales tax payments to the other states?
Definitely. And Amazon, this is kind of a big difference from when I left e-commerce space and free up. And now is Amazon's done a much better job of collecting sales tax. With that said, a lot of e-commerce sellers sell on other places besides Amazon. And every state is different and has different reporting. Some you have to do per quarter. Some have certain limits you have to go over. Some you have to do every single month. So sales tax is something that we do. Our team is very familiar with sales tax. It really just depends on your business. We have to look at what states you're in, what marketplace you're using, where you're selling, what your revenue thresholds are for each state, and then how much of that is Amazon going to hand over versus what we're doing.
Is there any differences with like international marketplaces? So obviously Amazon sellers, you might be selling in Australia, Europe, Japan. How does that impact the bookkeeping? Is that trickier, more to look through, VAT taxes, all that stuff?
Yeah, great question. So the good thing is that bookkeeping's bookkeeping. There's what's called GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. And if we're doing bookkeeping in Canada or bookkeeping in the UK or bookkeeping in the US, it's almost exactly the same. Now, where it changes is on the tax side. And like I said, we don't offer taxes now. If in 2 years we do decide to offer taxes, we would only offer US taxes. I don't think we're going to start having CPAs in Ireland or whatever. But you should have a local CPA in whatever country that you're selling on, so that we can communicate. And if there's any kind of nuisances or that, or any kind of withholdings or anything like that you have to do as a business, we can communicate with them so that part gets handled for you. But the actual bookkeeping, the income statement, the balance sheet, the cash flow, it's the same across the board. And it doesn't really matter where your bookkeeper's located as long as they're following that gap.
When is a good time? I don't know if I face this question. When should the seller start worrying about this? Like, after a couple of products, they get to 6 figures, maybe they get to 5 figures a month. Is that when they need to get somebody in there? I mean, they're at the very beginning, you're kind of being scrappy. You're trying to get this thing to go. When's a good time for somebody to actually go all in with getting a bookkeeper?
Yeah, I get it. And I've always been kind of that scrappy entrepreneur. I've never taken funding. I bootstrapped things like free up. We started with $5,000. So I kind of get that. At the same time, there's almost no reason for you to do your own books. Our monthly minimum is $250 a month. You could probably find a bookkeeper that's cheaper than that, but you shouldn't be doing your own books from the beginning, but you should be getting reports to make decisions on. So my advice is to get it set up. Yeah, it's one more expense you have to pay for every month, but you'll be so happy that you did it down the line if you're serious about being an entrepreneur. And it's not that expensive. Like, if your business fails, it's not going to be because of your monthly bookkeeping costs. It's going to be because of a lot of other things that didn't work. So get it set up right. I can't tell you how many cleanup projects that we get that we have to charge clients thousands of dollars to fix everything up. And I mean, we don't necessarily like doing it. Sure, we make a little bit of money, but it takes up a lot of our team's time that I'd rather just hit the ground running. It's not good for the seller. It takes time. They always regret it. They always wish that they had just set up bookkeeping from the beginning. The earlier you set it up, the better. And it's not too late. If you're 6 months behind, we're recording this and as we're entering the summer, now is a great time to get caught up on your books. The accountants, the bookkeepers, they're less busy now than they're going to be in January, February, March, April. So get everything set up properly early. And in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, you're going to really thank yourself that you did it.
Do you have any crazy stories of people that have come to you with just, I mean, it's all a mess, and conversely, stories of once people started working with you and started getting the reporting and the insights, that there was like, oh wow, this can make a huge impact in my business. I can pivot, and this is going to take me to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, we had people come to us who haven't paid taxes in 3 years. We've had people come to us that like the way they've been paying themselves is just incorrectly. It's not set up properly for the type of business they are, and we have to redo a year or two's worth of payroll. You kind of see that on a weekly basis. I think at first it was shocking. Now it's just kind of part of running a bookkeeping service. In terms of like making decisions, like we've had people who realize one part of their business is much more profitable than others, so they spend time on it, or they realize that their payroll expenses are going up faster than their revenue, or vice versa. They realize, hey, we really can afford to hire that extra full-time employee based on what the numbers are saying. I mean, one way we've really helped someone is we work with an 8-figure seller who's very seasonal, and they don't make a lot of money during the summer, but they need to keep paying all their people. They don't want to let people go during the summer. So they need to project out cash flow 12 to 16 weeks in advance within $1,000 or so, and know how much cash is going to be in the bank account so they can survive the summer. And this is a massive business. They know that if they can survive the summer, there's a lot of money waiting on the other side, but they need to be able to project out that cash flow. So those are a few examples.
Yeah. Yeah. Seasonal. That's something people don't think about a lot either, but yeah, you don't want to be laying off people and then rehiring every time summer comes around because you mismanaged your cash flow projections.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some other stuff too, just like commingling personal and business. Like that's a complete mess. It's like very risky when it comes to getting audited by the IRS. It's a mess to like sort through and fix down the line. Yeah, we see that stuff like that all the time.
Yeah, that's a good one. That is something I definitely made a mistake on early on. Because but it was my mindset at the time. It was my side hustle. It was like, this is my extra cash over here in this account, and when I needed it, I needed it. And, but it's definitely commingling. That's tricky. Well, I know a lot of people are listening right now. Maybe this is an area they've been trying to manage themselves. Maybe they didn't realize the ease of which you can make it possible for them to have a full-time bookkeeper working for them with insights. And they're very interested. What do they need to do to start a conversation with you?
Yeah, go to EcomBalance.com. You can book a call with me right on the site. You can you can create an account, submit our pricing form to get a quote. We have a very high level of customer service there to help you, and we want to make sure all your questions are answered. You can also connect with me on social media. Love meeting other entrepreneurs. Nathan Hirsch on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and follow our journey. If you're not quite ready, join our newsletter. We try to be very open as we build companies. Like if we're doing something good, we're doing something bad. We love to just keep people posted on the decisions we're making and how we're growing. So it's fun for us to follow. It's fun for us to share. And I appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh, absolutely. And everyone can tell me your story. It just shows, like your determination. You've done multiple things in your life growing, and you've done them successfully. That's that transparency and that honesty and that determination comes through when you're talking about your story. So I know people are hearing that, and they're definitely looking to work with somebody like that. So everyone go check out EcomBalance.com. Follow Nathan on social media, and we'll get you back on, Nathan. I'm sure there's lots of things to dive into, because you can get into the nitty-gritty on the impact of all of these things regarding bookkeeping for everybody. So we'll get you back on, and we'll keep posted on how your business is growing and some more success stories to your clients. So we really appreciate it, Nathan. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And thanks everyone for tuning in. If you like content like this, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. You can also follow our live streams on Solozo's social media channels. So Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, all of our past episodes with great guests like Nathan are there. You can go watch those. Additionally, if another pain point in your e-commerce journey is advertising on Amazon, we'd love to help you at Solozo. We can take that load off of your plate also. We can fully optimize and automate your PPC on Amazon. So go to Solozo.com, top right corner. You can book a demo with either Chris or myself. We'd love to talk with you about anything e-commerce related and also show you the power of Solozo's platform. So check us out, Solozo.com. All right, that's it for today. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks, Nathan, for the great insight.